All right, it is 5:35, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us at the third community meeting for the Murchison Choice Neighborhood Plan. Looks like we have about 32 people here, more coming in, so I will be letting people in as we get rolling. But just wanted to thank you all for your time and your energy as part of this plan. We have a lot of interesting things to share tonight, and we want to get you involved in really talking about how we can move the community forward. So my name is Adam Rosa. I'm with Collabo Planning and Design. We are the planning coordinators for the Choice Neighborhood Plan, which means really that we're facilitators and we're resources for the community. I've personally had the opportunity to work on about 8 or 9 choice projects all around the country. So, I'm really happy to be part of the Fayetteville team. And I think where we are in the process is it's an exciting point because we're starting to move from purely listening and kind of big ideas, and we're starting to move down into more specific action steps. So I see some new names on the list here that I haven't recognized before. So what we'll do is I'll take a few minutes to kind of put this in context. So if this is your first meeting, that's okay. I'll tell you a little bit about what Choice Neighborhoods is all about. And then as we move into the second half of the meeting, we're going to be reflecting on some of what we've heard over the last couple months. Our second community meeting was held at the end of August, so it was about 2 months ago. So we want to bring everybody up to speed on what's been going on with our team and the direction that we're going in terms of this process and making it a success. So I'm going to start with the 3 legs of the stool. So we are engaged in what's called a Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant. And this is a HUD program that really focuses on these 3 elements that you see on the screen here. So it's about people, it's about housing, and it's about neighborhoods. So if in the past, HUD, obviously it's a housing, it's a federal housing authority. And what they've looked at up until this point was primarily how do we improve public housing. The unique thing about Choice Neighborhoods is that it goes beyond looking at a particular public housing site, and it really puts it in context of an entire neighborhood improvement strategy. And then the third leg of the stool that is really critical to the success are the people projects. So these are the supportive services that are going to ensure that we don't just have a nice, pretty, beautiful neighborhood, but we have the infrastructure in place that will help people achieve success. So the planning area as defined in our process is really the entire Murchison Road corridor from Country Club Drive, Pamela on the north, all the way down to just beyond Fayetteville State University on the south. And as part of the grant, we had to identify what's called a target housing site. And that, in this case, is the Murchison Townhouse property, which is a Fayetteville Metropolitan Housing Authority site, which is highlighted in yellow, is built in 1970. It has about 60 units of housing. The Murchison neighborhood, there's been several focus studies about the neighborhood and focused initiatives. And this is just an additional layer to looking at reinvestment strategies. So there's about 6,800 people that live within the gray area that you can see on the screen here, and that's about 3 square miles overall. This is a federally designated opportunity zone, so that means there's certain tax breaks that are available for new development that comes into this area. It's also a locally designated neighborhood revitalization strategy area. So a lot of these things are aligning, and the fact that it was designated as an NRSA was kind of instrumental in us winning the planning grant. So the city's been focused on improving this particular part of town for quite a while. So I'm going to back up just 1 second and tell you a little bit about Choice Neighborhoods. So as I mentioned, we're doing a Choice Neighborhoods planning grant, which is a 2-year-long process. Once we're able to complete the plan, we can then apply for what's called a Choice Implementation Grant, which would be up to about $30 million to make all the great things happen that we identify as a community. So putting this in our overall timeline, our planning grant is a 2-year process. We began in essentially around January of this year, and really spent the first several months focused on listening and learning, and then moved into visioning for the future during the summer and early fall. And now we're at that pivot point where we're looking to shift from primarily visioning into developing strategies, programs, and projects. So a couple other things you'll see here is early action projects. That's something we're working on. Currently, we have 2 going on, actually more than 2, but the 2 primary ones are a little free library program that we're hoping to install somewhere around 19 little free libraries within the larger Murchison neighborhood. And we can talk a little bit more about that as we go on. We're also looking to do a digital equity initiative, which includes free Wi-Fi in portions of the community, including at Murchison townhouses. So we're hoping the early action projects help us go beyond planning and really start to show positive momentum for the project. The other thing you'll see is creating community connections. So while this project is being led by the City of Fayetteville and the Fayetteville Metropolitan Housing Authority as equal partners, it's also about all of the other stakeholders that can bring resources to the table and help us make these projects a success. Once we move into year 2, which is coming up pretty quickly here in a couple months, we're going to be focusing more specifically on people, housing, and neighborhood elements, putting our draft plan together by halfway through next year. So early summer of next year, we'll have the draft plan. And then the final plan will be due to HUD in December of 2022. So we have about 14 months to go and a lot of exciting things coming up as far as this process goes. So I wanted to introduce you all to our community ambassadors. So these are residents that applied to be part of our planning team and take a position as liaisons to the larger neighborhood. Many of them are on the call here tonight. They're really the foundation for our overall effort, especially our engagement going forward. And you're going to hear from 3 or 4 of our ambassadors as we go through the meeting here. You may know some of these folks already. Many are local leaders in the community. We're working to help to continue to empower the ambassadors to become champions for change in the neighborhood. And one way we're doing that is we're doing monthly leadership training sessions with representatives from the city of New Bern. Teresa Lee, she was part of New Bern's Choice Neighborhoods Plan, which was completed about 4 or 5 years ago, and Dr. Michelle Ely from NC-A&T State University. So we've done 2 training programs so far, and we're looking to continue that on a monthly basis with our community ambassadors and some of our key staff from the planning team, as well as FMHA, and with the goal of really trying to empower our ambassadors to become leaders, to grow as leaders in the community and to help us make sure that this project is a success. So we're really excited to be able to kick off the training program. We've spent the last few weeks holding a series of smaller community conversations. Due to COVID, we couldn't do the big blowout gatherings and the big, huge public meetings. So we decided to pivot a little bit and hold some smaller conversations that were, an hour and a half in length. So I'm going to kind of introduce each of these, and then our ambassadors are going to tell you about some of what they've learned at these community conversations. So the first was with E.E. Smith High School, the student council. And we wanted to make sure that we were hearing the voices of the young people that live in the neighborhood or go to school in the neighborhood and getting at their perspective, because so often their voices are kind of left out of this kind of process. So we want to be really intentional about engaging youth as we move forward. So some of what we learned from that meeting is up on the screen here. And I'm going to introduce Ms. Janet Henderson, and she's going to tell you a little bit about what we learned at the conversation with the student council. Janet?
Yes, good evening, everyone. As a graduate of E. Smith Senior High School, I was very pleased to participate along with the other ambassadors to get the feedback from the Student Government Association. Had a great group of students that were on the line giving us all this great feedback that you see on the screen. And some of the themes we've heard in other community conversations, so we see that we're having some similarities there. One of the biggies is creating a Boys and Girls Club, try to do an annual event with the entire community. You know, kids would love to help decorate the free libraries. That's one of our early action projects that Adam just mentioned. So they're willing to do some community service along with helping us to meet our goals for the community initiative. Of course, they identified gun violence and gangs as some of the biggest problems that they're experiencing as students and residents of the community. Again, tutoring and mentoring programs, very important. Want to see more of that or have it, you know, instituted as a part of this initiative and rolling out. So there's a whole lot up here. Like I said, they gave us a lot of feedback. I was very proud of the students. They talk about how E.E. Smith is very family oriented and they receive a lot of support. So that's one of the foundations of any community is having that village. So I think those were some of the key things that we actually heard back from those students. So thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Janet. Appreciate that summary. So our second community conversation was held at the Murchison Townhouse property, which if you remember is our target housing site for the plan. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Kim Williams, and she's going to tell you a little bit about what she heard at the Murchison Townhouse conversation. Kim?
Hi everyone, and welcome to our community meeting. I just want to say that we had this community conversation around October the 20th, and it lasted for about 2 hours from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. and we had this at the Murchison Townhouses. Now, of course, you see here a little bit of overlap. So what we talked about and what we generally heard at this conversation, some of the residents also wanted to, they were very concerned about the trash and debris. They talked about drugs and the selling of drugs that were really big in the community, and it posed a safety issue for a lot of people. We got a number of seniors that wanted to have a check-in program. They wanted to continue with the community pride. Also, they really thought it was a great neighborhood and that it had a few bad elements, but it could be great again. The other thing we heard again, I said is an overlap, was a mentoring program. And the next thing we heard was a community resource center, and which we do already have a community resource center. And we were thinking maybe to expand that and to have more resources there. So this is basically what we heard. Two other things I heard from residents. They wanted postal service mailboxes in the neighborhood and along the corridor. And they also wanted to have a conversation about the moving. There is some concern about who will be moving us, how that's going to take place. But overall, we were very pleased with the turnout. We also did some surveys where we distributed surveys and asked questions, which some of this feedback came from those surveys. And we also collected their email accounts so that we could better contact them and let them know about information on a more timely basis. So that was a very good turnout. We got some great feedback.
Thanks for giving us the summary, Kim. And I think that that really leads to some important topics of conversation going forward. So we have a requirement as part of Choice Neighborhoods for a 1-for-1 replacement of the public housing units. And that can happen either on property, we can just rebuild on the same site. That can happen in the neighborhood, looking at other opportunity sites and potentially mixing or, introducing mixed income housing at different income levels, or it can happen elsewhere in the city in areas of opportunity. So we're starting to move into that part of the process where we're going to be evaluating different options for housing. But the critical thing is that all the residents will have the right to return to any newly constructed housing going forward. But we need their input on where it should be, how it should look, how it should feel, what features they want to see. And that's part of the reason why we've conducted a really detailed surveying effort of the residents at Murchison townhouses. So our third community conversation was held a couple days ago, and you may see a familiar face on the screen in the middle. Mayor Colvin was able to attend as a resident and really wanted to participate and also just listen to some of the feedback from the surrounding neighborhood in terms of how we can make this plan a success. So I'm going to pass it over to Lenora Lassiter. She's another one of our ambassadors, and she's going to tell you a little bit about what we heard at the third community conversation. Lenora?
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So at Miss Cynthia House, we had a great community conversation coupled with some great food, first and foremost, and some of the different topics that was brought up during that community conversation. The neighbors were very prideful on their neighborhood. They stated that they had really great neighbors. One thing that they focused on as well, that it was a college town, but they did state that they would like to see a senior check-in program. Of course, that's a very aging neighborhood. We have some mature adults on that side of town. So definitely they stated that that's something that they would like to take into consideration. Also neighborhood beautification. And they also mentioned a resource center, which have been already previously mentioned. In addition to that, they also stated that some of the challenges was drugs are a big challenge over in that area. Speeding, of course, especially on the Carina Circle and Jasper Street area. They stated that there is some excessive speeding. Another thing that they wanted to kind of focus on was some of the dilapidated homes over in that area, and to see code kind of enforce that so that they can, again, beautify the neighborhood. So those were some of the main focal points, or should I say, that we covered during that community conversation over at Miss Cynthia Leake's home.
Thank you, Lenora. And I was really bummed that I had to miss that, especially now that I hear about the great food that was there. So we wanted to thank Cynthia for hosting. And we're going to continue to have these smaller conversations going forward because they're a great way to get feedback in more of an informal setting. So what do we do with all this feedback? Well, we're moving into the phase where we're starting to identify housing opportunities. And that's important because it's one of the 3 pillars of the Choice Neighborhoods plan. And as I mentioned, this could be redeveloped housing on site at the Murchison Townhouse property, or it could be a strategy that looks at other vacant properties within the neighborhood and identifies opportunities to build new mixed income housing on some of these sites. So we began with our team having an internal conversation around the housing and starting to look at, okay, where are these opportunities within the larger Murchison neighborhood? There's vacant property near FSU. There's vacant property at the northern part of the corridor. There's vacant property near the creeks, kind of on either side. Where does it make the most sense to promote new housing in the neighborhood? And one thing that's going to help us do that is a market study, which we're kicking off very shortly. So we put out an RFP, a request for proposals, for a market consultant expert to come in and do a formal study of the residential market, not only the market rate, but all the way down to workforce housing and lower income housing. what types of units, what's the absorption that we can expect over a period, and where should some of this housing go within the corridor. So that study is about to kick off, and that's going to help us answer some of those tough questions. We're also looking to potentially do kind of an add-on to that study that looks at some of the commercial opportunities. And I think we've heard over and over again that there's some major challenges. One is the lack of a grocery store within the Murchison community. So we want to start to think about how we can overcome some of those hurdles and start to potentially promote this area for commercial reinvestment while supporting local businesses that are there today. So as mentioned previously, one of the ways that we gathered information over the last month was a resident needs assessment survey. And that is a pretty detailed, about 100 question survey that 100% of the Murchison townhouse households completed. So got to give a big shout out to Dawn Weeks from Fayetteville Metropolitan Housing Authority and her staff in getting 100% participation. As I said, I worked on like 8 or 9 of these before. We've never gotten 100%. It's almost impossible to get everybody to take a survey. So they did an awesome job getting that feedback. And that's going to be the jumping off point for developing our strategies, because we're hearing directly from the residents about some of their things that they need, some of the things that they would like to see. So a couple kind of key takeaways. We're still kind of going through all the data. As I mentioned, it's 100 questions, but some of the things just wanted to share with you all. What types of indoor community areas should be created at a new housing property? Residents want to see exercise rooms, they want to see laundry, and they want to see spaces for tutoring for younger people. What types of outdoor community areas? They want to see new playgrounds. And if you've ever been on the Murchison Townhouse site, you know that there's currently not a playground there today. There used to be, but it isn't there anymore. They want to see picnic areas and barbecue areas, and they want to see better security, potentially lighting, and potentially even cameras on property that make it feel safer for residents. And we asked folks if the townhouses were redeveloped, would be interested in living in one of the new units. And about 88% said absolutely, and 6 said they didn't know, they'd have to see. Types of things that needed in the neighborhood: supermarket, pharmacy. We've heard this over and over again. Services that households need. These were the top 5. We had kind of a laundry list, but the top was budgeting, financial literacy. The second was small business training. Third was childcare. Fourth was homeownership counseling, and 5th was physical fitness and exercise programs for all ages. So as we get into the survey, we're going to be creating an entire summary document that we'll share with everybody. We'll put it on the website. But this will be a jumping off point for the development of our strategies going forward. So we have some other fun projects that are going on that we wanted to share with you all. We're working with the Moja group to develop a coloring book for the community to get young people interested in the history of the neighborhood. So we all know the Wall of Honor. You can see it here on the screen. We're taking elements of the wall with the help of the Moja group, and we're creating a coloring book. Here's a couple sample pages. We're featuring 10 residents that are important to the history of the neighborhood, and 10 locations that are really important to the neighborhood. So you can see Seabrook Park and Mayor Mitch Colvin here. We're hoping to get this coloring book completed in the next few weeks, and we can share it out to everyone. We're going to be able to pass it out to the schools. We want to put it into those little free libraries once we get those installed. And again, this is just a resource for young people to learn about all the things that make the neighborhood great. So moving into the visioning, if you were at our second community meeting about 2 months ago, you'll remember we asked this question: this project is successful, what are the 3 words you will use to describe the Murchison community in 10 years? And you can see our word cloud on the screen. The more often we heard the word, the larger it is. So the biggest word is thriving, vibrant, prosperous, popular, adaptable, diverse, safe, place for growth, employment, culture-centered, a destination neighborhood, innovative, inspirational, lovable, creative, regenerative. So we are taking these words and this vision, and one of our projects over the next few months, we're looking at potentially doing an additional mural. We have the Wall of Honor, and there's a big retaining wall in front of Mount Sinai that we're looking at potentially doing a mural that really captures the future vision of the neighborhood. And we think could be a good complement to the Wall of Honor that recognizes the history of or really the past and present. So if any of you are interested in being part of this, we'd love to have you on board, whether it's actually going out and painting or helping us coordinate. We also have a steering committee that has some members of the arts community. So we're going to tap them as well to make sure that this is a success and that this brings additional kind of vibrancy to the corridor. Okay, so we are moving into the next phase here. Hold on one second. All right, flipping around. Okay, so I wanted to tell you what we're doing with all this feedback we've heard so far over the last 10 months of the process. So we developed a series of themes for revitalization that are based on this vision. Each of these, so it's really 3 themes. Each of them captures different project ideas that are related, but they're not standalone. It's more, you can think of them as more of like layers of a cake. So they can all layer on top of each other, but thematically it helps us organize and it helps us give direction to where the plan is going to be going. So I'm going to kind of quickly introduce the 3 themes, and then we're going to circle back and we're going to spend about 15 minutes on each of the themes. So we can have discussion, we can have feedback, you can help us identify new projects that can go on the theme. So again, this is a starting point. We're going to continue to refine this over the next 14 months. So the first theme is called Growing Green in an Enriched and Complete Community. And this theme, you can see some of the featured projects on the theme with the ones that really stand out in the middle, establish what we're calling the big 3, which is a bank, a grocery, and a pharmacy. We've heard over and over the last 10 months that those are critical needs in the community. So we need to be really focused on how do we attract and promote these 3 uses that can really make it a more livable neighborhood and a neighborhood of choice. So some of the other projects that we've heard that kind of fall within this theme, little smaller things like planting street trees, bigger policy things like creating development without displacement policies, so that we can ensure that the residents that live here now can benefit from improvements and that there isn't anyone getting pushed out, that we're providing affordable and mixed income housing and expanding a home rehab program, establishing community cleanup programs, providing free and low cost mental health services. This was an idea that was brought up at our first community meeting, and we really wanted to capture it and really promote it loud and clear. Improving some of the local parks, including Seabrook Park, establishing hardware store, to a lending library so that people have resources to improve their homes. Other projects that are about connections. So establishing a creek walking trail to connect to Glenville Lake, improving street lighting, encouraging more shops and services, establishing first-time home ownership programs, planting and maintaining community gardens, enhancing code enforcement. If you remember that a couple of those community conversations that was brought up as a topic, creating healthy food, potentially a large lot program where homeowners could acquire adjacent vacant properties and expand their yards. So this is a jumping off point. So as we get into our conversation in the second half of the meeting, I want you to be thinking about, okay, what do you think of this theme? And are there other project ideas that you have that would fit within the Growing Green bucket? So the second theme is called College Town. And this is about really leaning into the fact that we have a major university in the community, in the corridor, really trying to promote reinvestment, especially within walking distance of Fayetteville State, and keeping FSU as an HBCU, potentially developing what's called an employee housing initiative to encourage staff members of FSU and potentially even Cumberland County Schools to live within the community. And this has been a successful program that has been implemented in other places, but it could include incentives for living within a mile or two of the campus. Focusing reinvestment in that area, creating educational programs before and after school. I think we heard at every one of our community conversations how critical tutoring would be to this neighborhood, but also fostering adult education. Recognizing the heritage of E.E. Smith High School and creating new technology programs. The principal there has really been focused on how to connect the residents with the technology of the future and what's coming down the pipeline. So starting to really create those opportunities for young people. Getting our digital equity initiative program going with the Little Free Libraries. The Boys and Girls Club, we heard loud and clear from the E.E. Smith Student Council. I think that's something we'd like to try to push forward on as part of the plan. People have brought up the idea of the former Walmart space, and whether that could be a job training facility, if it isn't able to go back to more of a grocery store or that type of use. A community resource center, you can see that was brought up again several times. Creating walkable nodes through placemaking, which means places along the corridor where you feel comfortable walking around, crossing the street, maybe sitting outside, having a cup of coffee or lunch with your friends. And it feels like a place that you want to hang out and spend time. Pedestrian and bike lanes. One thing that we've heard is a real asset to this community is its proximity to downtown. How do we grow towards downtown? How does downtown grow towards Murchison corridor? That's something that this theme would really focus on. Establishing business and financial classes as ladders of opportunity. So that's the second theme, community of learning. The third and final theme is called Heritage Place. So this is historical and cultural community and recognizing the assets that are here today as building blocks. So instilling community pride through positive messaging, promotion, branding, celebrating Black history in the neighborhood. We talked a little bit earlier today about maybe it's a cultural heritage trail that actually gets formulated. Expanding public art, mural projects. I mentioned the one that we want to do at Mount Sinai. There are ideas about summer camp programs, arts and music, investing in local talent.
The curse? That's what my mother would say. They call that French when you curse, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry, just gotta mute somebody real quick here.
That ain't.
All right. Okay, enhancing opportunities for minority and female-owned businesses. And I think the key is we want to build local ownership and local opportunities. And it's not about bringing in all this outside investment. It's about growing what's there today and enhancing what's there today through this theme. The Block Watch program, community-based development organizations. You don't really have those in the community working today, but that's something that can be established. Revitalizing existing homes and commercial buildings. It's celebrating diversity, public funding to improve infrastructure. We heard about speeding, so traffic calming, safer streets, and then physical activities for kids. So that's a lot. I know it's really a lot to take in, but we're going to have a chance to kind of circle back to each of these themes and reflect on them. And the questions that we want to have here as we go through the second half of the meeting, and we're going to have each of our ambassadors kind of walk us through these questions, but I just wanted to put these out front. So do you think the theme accurately captures the potential of the neighborhood? Are we going in the right direction? The second is, are there certain projects that we're showing on that theme that you think are the most important to highlight? And then what other projects do you have that could help strengthen that theme? So that's what we're going to do over the next 45 minutes or so, and really want to give everybody a chance to jump in. I see some things coming into the chat as well. So we can do this in two ways. You're going to be able to either unmute yourself if you want to come in and give your feedback, or you can put it into the chat and we'll capture it there. So let's start with growing green, an enriched and complete community. So I'm going to pass it over to Lenora, and she's going to kind of help facilitate this conversation. as we think about the Going Green theme. Lenore?
All right, thank you so much, Adam. So you guys basically heard the overview in regards to the Growing Green theme. And while listening to Adam convey the message or the concepts of the Growing Green theme, I hope that you kind of reference the word cloud, which indicated thriving, vibrant, prosperous, popular neighborhood. And of course, with the richness of the Murchison community, the first question that I would like to ask those who are on the call is this: do you think this theme accurately captures the potential of the neighborhood? Do you think this theme here, the Growing Green theme, captures the potential of the neighborhood? And again, as Adam stated, you can take yourself off mute to provide us with feedback, and we would love to take your feedback and hear what you have to say. So please take yourself off mute, and we'll love to hear from you. Anyone? We have a lot of people on the call.
I don't think there's a cookie cutter approach to either of the plans because the big three, the bank, grocery, and pharmacy, that's important, but it's not in all the plans. So I had put in the chat, if there was a possibility to take some of the top tier, I guess, choices or answers from the community and put into a fourth plan, because I mean, they all sound good, but in reference to your question, do you think that's the feature of the community? I mean, it can be. I mean, that's why we're all talking now. But I mean, I think that's very important. The big three. That's what really stood out to me as far as Growing Green.
All right, thank you so much, Dylan. And we definitely was talking about that a little bit earlier. We're pretty much certain that with the different themes, that some of the concepts definitely will be taken into consideration and married together. So thank you again, Dylan, for your feedback. Anyone else before we move to the next question in regards to this?
I'm going to jump in real quick on that. So
Sure.
I think that's a great point, Dylan. I think that what we're going to do as we develop the plan is really take almost the greatest hits of all of these themes to create that ultimate kind of preferred plan for the neighborhood.
Right.
But this is a way to organize as we get started. So thank you for that.
Adam, we do have another question in the chat, but before we get to the question, I do want to acknowledge this person who made a statement. They stated that with enough money, anything is possible. We definitely agree with that. And Cardell Hunt stated, growing green is important. How do we maintain staying green?
I think that's a great point. I think that the growing green, the way that we've thought about it is we're growing green in a physical way. We're making the neighborhood greener, more beautiful, more vibrant. But growing green could also be growing green like money in the neighborhood, trying to establish local businesses and expand local ownership opportunities for residents so that they can see some return on their investments. So I think that's a good topic to throw, or a good question to throw out to the group about sustainability. As we start to make these projects happen, how do we ensure that there is that they're long lasting and they're not just a year or two and then they're done.
All right, thank you so much, Adam. And Christina, you did make you have a question here. I just want to make sure that I convey it correctly. So if you can, I'm going to translate it, but if I do not translate it correctly, please retype your question. But your question is, will the local government help things change, but then allow it to fall back to where it once was? I'm assuming that is your question. If that is not what you were asking, please retype your question and we'll get that answered for you. Adam, do you want to take a shot out? I mean, a stab at that, should I say, in regards to this question? She gave me the okay, so I think that is exactly what she was asking.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I just want to emphasize that the city of Fayetteville is a really a lead partner in this effort, and they're really they're invested 100% in ensure that this is a success. Whether or not we win that big $30 million implementation grant 2 years from now, there's going to be resources that are dedicated to improving this neighborhood based on this plan and based on what you all are telling us. I'm a little interested to hear about just your thought on kind of falling back afterwards. And I don't know if Christina, if you want to unmute yourself and talk a little bit about that. I guess what I think you're saying is that they aren't going to be heavy-handed in coming out and changing the neighborhood, but you want to make sure that the residents are build their leadership and they're able to make these things happen. But please take yourself off mute and share that with us if you're comfortable doing that. And that's fine too.
So Adam, again, I don't want to make an assumption here, but hopefully, Murchison was a thriving community, vibrant community before. And I guess with this, possible revitalization, she just wants to ensure that it will not, return back to what it currently is now. Again, that's an assumption. And Christina, if I'm wrong, you can put thumbs down or you can give me the okay, or just like he stated, take yourself off mute to clarify. She gave me an okay, so that was correct. All right, so we have another question in the chat, Adam, and if you want me to pivot to the second question, I can.
No, we can address the question in the chat.
Okay, all right. So the next question, with the affordable housing aspect, is the city of Fayetteville looking at the current residents and are bringing in new residents? And my screen is kind of cutting off some part of the question here. For example,
soldiers.
Incoming soldiers.
Yep. That's another great question. And I think the answer is both. We want to ensure that we're replacing the existing affordable housing at Murchison townhouses, which there's 60 units of housing there. So that's the bare minimum. We want to do a lot more than that. We want to build additional affordable housing opportunities, workforce housing, which is really that range where you can be, a teacher or a firefighter or something like that, but potentially still need just a little bit of additional help in purchasing a home, and even market rate housing. So our market study is going to help unveil what the potentials are for those different areas. But I think we definitely want to not only retain residents, but think about how to attract new residents to the area. And in doing so, make sure that we don't displace anyone that's there today.
Thank you, Adam. Great question, Jiminique. And any other questions, you guys, please feel free to type your questions in the chat or take yourself off mute. So we have another question from Artisha. She stated, any additional housing to help reduce the homeless in the community?
Yeah, another great one. And I know with Fayetteville Metropolitan Housing Authority on our team, we've heard over and over again that their waiting list is pretty long. So if we can build more lower income housing units that are available to people coming out of homelessness and really wanting to move into an apartment, we would love to be able to do that. And that's one of the goals, is expanding the overall amount of affordable housing within the neighborhood. So thank you for sharing that question. I think that's something that we're going to be looking at, especially related to homeless and the numbers that we have currently within Fayetteville.
Thank you, Adam. Great question, Artisha. Okay. The next question in regards to this theme is, are there certain projects shown on the theme that you think are the most important to highlight? Again, are there certain projects on this theme that you think are the most important to highlight? If you can, type in your responses in the chat for us. And as Forrest stated, if you want to come off mute, feel free.
I'd like to speak.
Did someone say something?
I did.
Okay, please
Uh,
go ahead.
I live in the Murchison Road, as a matter of fact, Eccles Park. I like it here. I have a house over off Cliffdale in Southport, but I like it here. And all the apartments and stuff that you're bringing in and piling up on top of us, and all of the new people that's coming in, and we can't accommodate, the Murchison Road can't accommodate it. So they cut through our neighborhood already. We live here. We don't really want this. We want the houses that's already here repaired and brought up to standard. We want the streets clean. We want water drains put down so that it don't flood the houses. It's so much work that needs to be done here that wasn't done. So why are you putting a Band-Aid on top of it and calling it so, a new project? We need to finish the old project. We don't want to move, and we certainly don't need all these new people coming in apartments. If it was housing, it would be different. But all these apartments, they come in, they leave. They come in, they leave. We started picking up trash. We started trying to keep the neighborhood clean with no help from the city. And I've asked for a library over and over and over again. And now you're talking about building apartments, but the kids and the people still don't have a library to go to. So maybe you might consider taking some of that into consideration. If you've got so much money you don't know what to do with. Since I live here, please consider the people who live here. And that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Margie, for your feedback. We definitely will take that into consideration and annotate that in our notes here. And I did receive a direct message from a young lady who's on, and she stated, does the grant provide for the purchase of land to build new units? Adam?
So the planning grant that we have now we're not allowed to use that money to purchase land. If we were to get the implementation grant, which is the $30 million, absolutely, that could be used to purchase. It could be used to rebuild units. It can be used for a number of different things, building things in the neighborhood. What we do have as part of this planning grant is $150,000 for early action projects, which we're focusing on those little free libraries that I think helps to address something that Ms. White had brought up about libraries in the neighborhood, as well as that digital equity, the Wi-Fi program that we're looking to roll out. But I also want to respond to one thing that Ms. White had mentioned about the apartments versus the single family homes. So we also want to look for ways to promote new home ownership opportunities, whether that's for residents of FMHA today, where they could step up out of an apartment into a single family home, or whether it's new residents that want to move to the neighborhood and become part of the community. So we are definitely not only focused on apartments, we want to think about how to build new single family, and then also what she mentioned about rehabbing existing homes and bringing resources to the people that have lived here so long and invested in the neighborhood. So it's that delicate balance, but we're hoping that this grant really helps us to achieve some of the results that Ms. Margie brought up previously.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, Adam. We do have another question in the chat, and it states, but who's the target market for those housing units? Is this a situation where Fay is tearing down, I guess they're saying Fayetteville is tearing down the old units simply to beautify, to say that Fayetteville did it with the same people in new units? Or is this a situation where there is a targeted effort to bring in new faces? Good point, Miss Margie.
Yeah, so I guess I would respond to that in this way. So anything that we do to those 60 units that are at Murchison townhouses, that's going to be a 1-for-1 replacement where all the residents have the ability to come back to the new units. They may not all want to come back. They may want to take a voucher and live elsewhere in the neighborhood or go somewhere else in the city. We're going to work through all that over the next year. There'll be a whole kind of strategy around that. Lenora, what was the second part of that question? If you can remind me.
Sure. The other part of the question was, is this a situation where Fayetteville is tearing down the old units simply to beautify to say that Fayetteville did it with the same people in new units? Or is this a situation where there is a targeted effort to bring in new faces? So basically displacing those who are currently there to bring in new faces.
Yeah, one of our core principles of this plan is we want to create opportunities without displacement and development without displacement. So we think looking at what's available currently in the neighborhood, there's just quite a bit of vacant land along the corridor. There's areas where we think new housing could go. Fayetteville's a growing city. We want to try to promote this area, but also additional residents would help to support local businesses. So there's that as well. It's going to be a balance, and our market study is going to help kind of dictate some of what the potential is over time. None of this is going to happen overnight. None of it is going to be very dramatic. All of a sudden, all these buildings are coming up. It's going to be a process, and we're going to work through it over several years. But the key principle is that we do not want to displace any of the folks that are there today and have invested and created their lives within the neighborhood. So thank you for keeping that at the top of our list as we go forward here.
All right, thank you, Adam. Artesia stated rehabilitation will resource and additional programs be available to restore the homes or apartments in the community. So that kind of goes back to the rehab that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, we would definitely like to try to create programs through this plan. And again, we're only about 10 months into a 2-year process. What we're going to be doing over the next 4 or 5 months is having what we call working groups that are going to be tackling these specific topics and issues. And if any of you are interested in being part of those groups, we would love to have you at the table, because we know you have a lot of great ideas, especially those that have lived in the neighborhood a long time. So this is going to be a community-led process. This is your plan. This isn't the city's plan. This isn't FMHA's plan. It's definitely not my plan. So we're here to listen to you and to hear your great ideas and help to make that happen. We recognize there's been a lot of talk, and there's been a lot of there's been previous plans that haven't really gotten off the ground. We want to make this different. So that's why it's so important that you're involved and at the table throughout the process.
Okay. Another question, again, thanks, Adam. This question is from Dylan. Dylan states, how does Habitat for Humanity fall within this plan?
That's a great question. We've reached out to Habitat as part of our group of partners. We'd definitely like to have them on our housing working group. We know that they do a lot of wonderful work throughout the city of Fayetteville, and other projects that I've personally been a part of in terms of choice neighborhoods. Habitat's played a major role in terms of looking at not only helping to rehab existing homes, but potentially building in some newer single-family home ownership opportunities. So I think they're going to be pretty critical to the housing piece of this plan.
All right, thank you, Adam. This question is from Christina. Christina stated, could some of that large grant be used to help people living in apartments help them become homeowners?
Definitely. If that's a project or a program that comes out of our plan that we put together, that will then be funded through that larger grant. So we can use a big portion of that $30 million if we were to get that to implement that program. We also have other resources that we're going to be tapping, both at the local level through the city, at the state level, and at the national level for a variety of these projects as they start to formulate. And we would love to have a plan that has 10 really big ideas and catalyst projects that we think we can help move forward on, and really get partners rallying around those projects to make sure that they're successful.
All right, thanks, Adam. And this is from an iPhone user. I won't be biased because I'm an Android user, but the question is, this area needs at least 7 to 9 houses that are transitional houses for possibly displaced families, homeless, and offenders. So that's a suggestion that the iPhone user is making.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. So that, again, that's another thing we're going to be looking at. How do we promote additional affordable housing for people that need it within the neighborhood?
Thank you. Christina is asking, will the new units be better homes for handicapped persons?
Yes, there will be if and when we redesign any of these homes, they will be completely accessible. The site itself will be accessible. So that's the sidewalks, the crosswalks, making sure that people can get into the community spaces. Everything that is done through Choice Neighborhoods in terms of the new mixed income housing will have that higher level of accessibility, because we know how important it is to the residents.
All right, thank you so much. This question is from Aja, and I want to just say, I apologize if I mispronounce y'all name. You can just inbox me directly and I'll make sure that I correct it. Aja states, I'm concerned that if an overwhelming of new people move into the area, then the power of the original residents would be diluted. For example, y'all build a new site with 180 units. All the folks from the original 60 units move back in. All of a sudden, the voice of the original folks is a lot less powerful, and the area could suddenly benefit the folks in the new units more than the original residents. How would this be handled?
That's a great question. So currently at the townhouse property, there isn't a resident council. There's no local organization. We would love to establish one through this plan so the residents have more of a voice. But I also want to just point out that several of our community ambassadors are residents of the Murchison townhouse property. So we wanted to make sure that they were part of this ambassador team, and that through the training and through all of this work that we're doing, they can build their leadership skills to help voice give voice to the residents as a whole. So thank you for that comment. I think that's something that we really need to take into consideration.
Thanks, Adam. The next question is from Bridget. She states, when referring to affordable housing, are you referring to market rent or below market rent? Some of the residents may be accustomed to paying below market rent.
Yeah, generally when we say affordable housing, that's below market rent. So there's different levels to that based on the area median income. And the 60 units at Murchison Townhouse, they're generally categorized as extremely low income units. We want to bring back the 60 units there, but we want to establish additional housing at different levels of area median income, all the way up to potentially market rate. So we have to see through the market study what the market is for those different levels and how many units could potentially be built within the neighborhood over time. So again, this isn't all going to happen in a year or two. We're going to be looking at like a 5 or 10 year window for potential reinvestment in the community.
Okay, thanks again, Adam. The next question is, what is the budget of the total grant for this Murchison Road project?
So the planning grant itself, we received a $450,000 grant from HUD to do this project. And that's all of what we're doing now, all of the community meetings, getting the community ambassadors on board, doing that, all those early action projects, the $150,000 going directly back to the community for those projects, and really conducting the entire 2-year-long process that'll put us in a position, if we all, if we're successful, hopefully it puts us in a position to go to that next step, which is that implementation grant.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Adolph Thomas. He states, will there be a working group on restoring grocery and banking resources?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have a working group that's focused on housing and commercial development. And that will include banking, grocery as part of that. And as I mentioned before, we're hoping to expand our market study to include commercial uses so that we can think strategically about recruiting a grocery store, bringing a bank or a credit union to the neighborhood, and making those connections to help ensure that that happens.
All right, thank you. The next question is from DeLon. He states, affordable housing usually equates to below market rates.
Question, that was
Then
just
again,
response to the last question. I'm just interacting, that's all. It was the question.
oh, okay, all right, gotcha. Thank you so much. And did I pronounce your name correctly?
That time you did, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So the next question is from Layton Edwards. Layton states, where on the Murchison Road are these townhouses located? What area are the other units going to be built?
So that's a great question. And we're figuring out the second part of that question over the next year. Right now, the Murchison townhouses, you can see on the map here, and this is kind of flipped around. We have downtown Fayetteville at the top. It's really to the south. So it's just south of Country Club Drive and Pamela on the western side of Murchison Road. So you may have never seen this. As you go down Murchison, you can't really see the apartments. They're tucked back in there. But there are 60 units of housing back in that location that you can see on the map here. The second, yes.
This is a point of reference. Those used to be called Rosemary Place. So that may help out a little bit. And long time ago, there was a club right there at the corner called Club International. So I don't know if that's helpful. Never been in there, but that's where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know about Rosemary Place, so thank you for sharing that. Yeah. The second part of the question, we're going to work with you all and with other folks on our team to identify whether we rebuild on that site, whether we build housing in other parts of the neighborhood, or whether there's another area of the city where those housing units should be relocated. So that's going to be part of the next 14 months of our planning process.
All right, thanks, Adam. Christina asks, how does putting mixed income people together help the ones that are low income? And why would better income people want to move here?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of research around this topic of, instead of creating, what we used to do with public housing, which is kind of like an island of poverty where everyone is an extremely low income. By creating a mixed income, you generally create healthier communities overall, because you have different folks from different walks of life and different stages of their careers living together in closer proximity. So it's really the old way that we used to create communities before we started to build public housing in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and in this case in the 70s. So it's kind of going back to the old way of developing neighborhoods.
All right, thank you. All right, this next question is from DeLon. He stated, what grocery brands have been in the topic of discussion? Because Walmart Neighborhood Mart didn't make it.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the point where we've reached out directly to different brands of grocers. That may become part of what we do starting in next year based on where we go with the overall plan. But at this point, we're really not there yet.
All right, great. And the other comments pretty much were just discussions amongst the different participants. So yeah. Oh, nope, here's another one. The Merc is pretty packed from Country Club to Langdon Street. Are we sure people are not being displaced?
Again, I just want to reflect on our goal is to ensure that we don't have displacement as part of this project. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that and a lot of individual decisions. People that have lived there for 50 years may decide that it's the right time to sell their home to a young family that wants to come in. But we want to really create the plan with the principle in mind that we're looking to ensure that homeowners have the right to stay in their communities and benefit from all the great changes that we want to work together to see happen.
Okay, thank you all. And the last final question for the green theme is, what are other project ideas do you have that will help strengthen this theme? What other projects do you have that will help strengthen this theme? Anyone?
What was the question again?
Okay, so we have something here. Jiminique stated, I support mixed housing. The key for me is to ensure that there are opportunities for the current established homeowners and new homeowners to flourish. If we focus on only low income, we won't have a sustainable model that will support grocery stores, restaurants, etc. Thank you for that. And Delon concurred with Jiminique's statement. All right, I think that is all for me, Adam, with the green thing.
Hey, you guys hit that one hard. So thank you so much for all that feedback. That was awesome. We really appreciate it. So we're going to go on to the second theme here. Again, just to refresh everyone's memory. This is about College Town, a community of learning. So I mentioned a lot of the different potential partners or projects that could become part of this project or this theme overall. But I wanted to turn it over to Kim Williams now to kind of walk us through a discussion relating to the College Town theme. Kim?
Thank you, Adam. So it's basically, we want a community of learning. We also would like a walkable community. We also want to keep FSU, which is Fayetteville State University, a historical Black college university. So we will need to build around it to accomplish that goal. Again, in the community, the Smith Center, it can already be a resource center, and we could just basically expand upon that. We also want to develop an employee housing initiative to encourage Fayetteville State University and Cumberland County school staff to live in the community. And that's where we're going for the sustainability. That's where we're going for the mixed incomes. And we also want to focus on reinvestment within walking distance of the campus. So there are a couple of other things that we are going to be looking at, focusing on creating the Community Resource Center, the foster adult education, also to create educational programs, before and after school programs, things of that nature. So again, we want to get your feedback. It's very important. So I'm going to start with the first question. Do you think this theme accurately captures the potential of the neighborhood? The college town theme. And you can either unmute and chime in. We would love to hear from you, or you can put it in the chat and let's have a discussion and address it. And please make us aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling about this theme.
This is Pearlie Hodges. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, Ms. Hodges. Thank you
Hi.
for coming.
Thank you for having us. The college town, the connotation, to me, it says more negative than positive. I like a community of learning, but I believe just kind of working with that college town theme a little bit, you might have a more positive outlook. Or it just, when I think college town, I think young people partying, all of that. But I like the community of learning. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And also, just going back to one of the things that someone said earlier, the Murchison Road area has a history of pride. And I think we can zero in on a single vision to be more diverse and inclusive and not have factions and schisms. I think we can all learn to live together, low income, higher incomes, so forth, medium incomes, but helping people to have pride in where they live makes, to me, all the difference in the world. And then having the faith community, there's so many churches on Murchison Road, it's, almost on every corner, there are a lot of churches. So faith works, getting that thing, faith works, and having them be a really strong part of whatever is going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Adam, would you care to address any of her concerns?
Yeah, those were great points that you shared. I think we need to
Yes.
we need to think about especially the faith community and how they get plugged into this plan and as partners. We've met with many of the churches along the corridor, and a lot of them have ideas or programs that they'd like to see implemented. I think Mount Sinai said they want to do a community kitchen program. I think that could be like a critical part of one of our projects for the plan. So utilizing the strength of the churches, I think, will be important to the success. I also get what you're saying about the theme of college town and what that connotates. So I'd love to hear other folks kind of weigh in on that.
Yes, and in addition, the taking the pride in your community, this is why it is crucial that everyone come alongside. And if you're invested in your community, you have done the necessary work to see the community built up. How can you not take pride in something that you are fully invested in, that you have come on a ground level and help build up? Yes, you will be invested in that community, and that pride would spill over. It's contagious. Okay, so we have another concern from Jimonique. There was the thought that Fayetteville State University would not be an historical Black college university. Fayetteville State University must provide the anchor for the community on that end. She also states, I'm a Fayetteville State University graduate and have lived in Durham and Atlanta close to the college areas. So we really could benefit from that expertise. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to pick up on one other thing that I saw in the chat here about the fact that this is quote unquote a college town community, but we don't really have the businesses in place to support that and to keep. I think it was Christina who said that. How do we keep the students here and help them, or really circulate the money within the community so that it isn't all leaving? And I think that we need to think about the types of businesses that students would want to interact with. You know, whether it's a coffee shop. Somebody brought up an idea in one of our conversations of like a bowling alley. It's something for younger people to do in the neighborhood. We don't have that currently. So I think that's part of creating that atmosphere of a place where the students want to live and hang out and spend time and spend money.
Adam, on top of that too, Chiminique and I went to Fayetteville State together, class of 92. Basically, for me, when I graduated from Fayetteville State University, I couldn't find a job in Fayetteville. I had to drive an hour away to get a job. And eventually I ended up moving out of the state. But pretty much you gotta have jobs to keep people here so that they can give back to the community. So finding, you know, what is it that people want to, you know, what are the major, I guess the top majors over at Fayetteville State, and what business incubation can we do around FSU to help keep people in the community?
Amen.
You know, it's too many. I didn't want to leave my hometown to have to go find a job after I graduated after 4 years, but that was what I was forced to do. And I did that for about 3 years. And, you know, I wanted to work here, but I couldn't get that, you know, get that employment going. And it was like, okay, what am I going to do? So moving out of the state was my alternative, but I came back, got back here last year. I'm here, but I still don't work in Fayetteville. I work remotely from out of Ohio. So those are some of the issues we may need to look at in terms of employment, just giving my own personal reference.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so we have that documented, and we will take a look at those things because it is very relevant, it's very important. Thank you for that, Janette. So Miss Cardell Hunt says, I like to see the term education town. This will reflect the other schools in the area. We also have a comment from Jiminique. Community of learning works. It picks up the theme of pride, community, and history. Christina Rayner also says it's a college town, but we don't have, okay, any of the businesses. I'm a little behind here. Okay. If we think in terms of a renaissance for this area, we can build on the community of learning that is a different concept than college town. And this was stated by Jiminique. And then we also have a comment from Karen. A community of a lifelong learning. I agree, college town can be misconstrued. And then we have Leighton Edwards' comment at our speaker. So true, the church community is almost invisible other than their buildings.
What I mean by that is on the Murchison Road, like the young lady was speaking, we have a whole lot of churches, but
Yes.
the church community is not involved with anything that's going on the Murchison Road. I live in this area. I was born and raised here. I graduated from Fayetteville State in '85. And like the other young lady said, I was here for 2 years after I graduated and wasn't working. And I did the one thing I said I would never do, was join the Army. But I had a great time. I stayed in for 21 years and retired. I love the Army. But there's nothing, no churches. And there's almost 48 churches on the Murchison Road from Shaw Road to Rowan Street. And none of them do anything that I've seen in the last year or so for the community. I have seen Hafina down at the Bronco Square at her dollar store do food giveaways, but I've never heard of any other church doing anything for the community. She's getting ready to host a food giveaway for Thanksgiving. But do you hear anything about any of the churches? If we don't have the people of faith backing the community, which is where, when I was growing up here, that's where most of your support came from, the church. If those
Yes.
people aren't supporting what's going on in the community, then there is no bigger base than the faith base. Then everybody will be stagnant like we are right now.
Would you be interested in maybe collectively getting a conversation going with all of the churches, and so that they are aware that that the people feel as though that they are invisible?
That would be great.
Okay. Make sure you keep your information and give me your information in the chat, and we can get together and start formulating that, because I totally agree with you.
Too awesome.
Okay. So
Maybe an opportunity to have a community meeting that is actually targeted to the faith community.
yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Great.
a reason why I bring that point out is the church that I attend, which is Mission Field Ministries, which is on the edge of Hope Mills and Fayetteville. We do a food giveaway every third Saturday of the month, and we do a food giveaway, and we call it's a BYOB, bring your own bags, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10:30 to 11 o'clock. We're giving away food, and people, I mean, we're giving away almost 200 boxes of food every third Saturday of the month. There are people out here in need, but and that's what 10 miles from here, but nobody here in this corridor where I live, where I grew up, are doing anything like that for the community.
Can I chime in a little bit? I apologize to interrupt. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So one, I apologize for being late, and I apologize for chiming in, but I'm about to chime in. So I am Gina Hawkins. I'm the chief of police, and I just want to share just a little bit in regards to the faith-based community, only because how much I'm in the community, that I am aware that we have a lot of faith churches and base leaders that are extremely active in our community and in the areas and are proactive. So I know all it is the disconnected communication. I actually held I have a faith forum quarterly that I invite all the faith-based community to come talk about public safety. And I have a chaplaincy program of leaders from other faiths, from churches in the community. But I also know there is multitudes of leaders that are in our community that are active, not just where their churches are active, within our entire community, and are very, very vocal and very, very active, giving, raising food, doing a lot of work. I know that all this is just the communication opportunity. Even when they attended today, one of the I held a community summit solutions today that brought leaders from the faith-based also. And one of the presenters I had at that session did say being able to have the force multiplier of faith, the faith community helping. But I think right now, all we need is, all you need maybe is to connect to the faith leaders. And I know that the city has access to those, I know there's a ministerial coalition that has all the faith-based leaders, just to possibly invite them to a meeting for you. And then that time they'll be able to share everything that their congregations, church or whatever, and what communities to maybe collaborate on this focus, especially if there are certain sections of the community that feel like they don't see them. But I can't sit here and say that I don't see them, because I see them everywhere, and it's not just one, it's a multitude of leaders. So, but I do think, I know that you would easily be able to have access to that. Even I could assist with, if you need a meeting to have this discussion of the list that I have, but I know the ministerial coalition has a list of all the connections as well as other outlets. So I just wanted to say that, and not be in the room. And I know how much the faith-based community actually working, even along the Murchison Road corridor. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I will be speaking with my project coordinator about reaching out to you so that we can have that communication and that conversation. Absolutely. I thank you for that. Also, Mr. Edwards, yes, I definitely would like for you to be involved in this. So we have another comment by Delon. I agree, Karen, because when I think of College Town, I immediately think of UNC Chapel Hill and North Carolina State, and they're known for being party schools. He also states a lounge spot for working professional millennials. He is very excited about. He says it would be dope. So I thank you very much for that. Delon also states that, yep, my full-time employer is in the Triangle and I'm unable to find employment in Fayetteville. And Christina Rayner concurs with that comment. We have a comment from iPhone. 2 division, faith-based and community-based bring awareness. Great point. And I have Artisha Elliott. My brother's keeper feeds the homeless monthly and started a tutoring program for children after school. Thank you for that information. We will definitely be reaching out to them. And we have another comment by Elena Ball to everyone. I have to hop off, but as we build out this community, please consider water and energy conservation in our design. PWC wants to be a part of making this a community that benefits from conservation. It helps the residents with their bills, it helps the environment, and it helps us at the utilities serve better. Thank you for the great meeting and dialogue. And again, welcome Chief Hawkins. Okay. We have Mount Sinai MBC. This is from John. Has done food giveaways in the past year. I actually picked up boxes and delivered some because people did not come in mass numbers. Okay. And okay, that's it that I have. Oh, I'm sorry, Delon he says, great conversation, have to go. But he wants to talk about life, health, and medical insurance needs.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, for facilitating. That was a great conversation as well.
Yes.
We're capturing all this feedback in the chat, and we'll have the meeting minutes available as well. So if you need to refer back to this, or like I said, we're recording the meeting itself. But I want to make sure we have a chance to hit on the third theme. And so we're going to move on to the third theme, and then if we need to come back, we can do that towards the end of the meeting. So the third theme, just to remind everyone again, this is called Heritage Place, a historical and cultural community. And Johnette is going to kind of lead us through the discussion around this third and final theme.
Yes, yes, some very good comments and feedback. Again, we thank you all for that. So Heritage Place, this is a reflection of a historical and cultural community. You can see some of the elements that we've sort of laid out here and to sort of guide the conversation, instill community pride through positive messaging, expand the public art and mural projects, establish summer camp programs, investing in our local talent, establishing a block watch program, better communication about existing programs, building upon what Chief Gina Hawkins just said, celebrating our Black history. We know that Murchison Road is full of historical individuals and a lot of rich history here, and we just want to capture that in this particular theme that we have here. So moving on to question number 1, do you think this theme accurately captures the potential of the neighborhood? So are we moving in the right direction with this particular theme? Some feedback there from you all. And if you want to put it in the chat, that's fine as well. All righty. Well, for me, I know Heritage is, we've got some things already going on. We have the mural at the corner of Langdon and Murchison Road that was done by by Miss Felder. And we also have her book that sort of puts it all together, and she's getting ready to do an additional book. So we've got one source of information about how rich the Murchison Road corridor is, and Murchison Road as a whole. So if you have anything you want to say about that, if you think we're on in the right direction, we would love to get that feedback.
Harry, I have something.
Okay.
This is Margie Whitehead once again.
Okay.
Heritage sounds good, but I would like not to have the place on it. That takes away from the heritage. When you say Heritage Place, I think of a dark end street. With all the pride and everything you've talked about, it needs something to go with it that brings it out. And I can't think, a long day today. But heritage sounds good if you just had something to go with that.
Okay. I think we just use these titles to sort of frame the thought process. It's not that it's going to actually be the name of whatever we do. So that's some good feedback. So we thank you for putting that in perspective for us. All right. Anyone else? Okay, so we're going to move on. Y'all are all talked out. See, that's when you lash, you don't get all that energy. So moving on to question number 2, are there certain projects shown on the Heritage Place theme that you think are the most important to highlight? So out of the ones that you see captured here, Adam has done a great job of putting these graphics together. It just sort of jumps out at you. Is there anything that jumps out at you right now? I know for me, the rehabilitation of existing homes and commercial buildings, specifically existing homes, is my sort of priority. Anyone else have anything? And I'm going to look in the chat and see if I see.
Here.
Go ahead.
I was saying the same here also.
Oh, okay. The rehab. Okay. All righty. Anyone else?
I'm sorry, I have one thing. I know you're talking about, you may not be talking about, I came in late, but have you even talked about, or have you talked about, or is it in the works to get a bridge across Murchison Road by Fayetteville State?
No, we have not had that discussion. I'm not quite sure if there's anyone here from Fayetteville State University. I know we talked about the traffic calming for safer streets, and I don't know if that's an element of that particular initiative or concept, but I think that's something that we could note on our.
Excuse me. I think that maybe if the bridge was there, it would cut down on these 18-wheelers coming through. Most college campuses do have a bridge walkway, the breezeway.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that would really cut down on a lot of the 18-wheelers that's just coming through here now wide open And whenever they first opened the corridor, they said that 18-wheelers would not be coming down Murchison Road. And now I sometimes get squeezed up between the two of them and hard to make a right turn because they're coming up on my bumper so fast.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's unfortunate. Okay.
I think that
Well,
that brings up a good point of collaboration with FSU. And I know we had at least one member of the university on the line earlier. I'm not sure if he's still on the line, but FSU is currently going through a master planning process of their own to look at the future of the campus and the surrounding area. So we're really trying to work closely with them to connect this larger neighborhood effort to what is being planned in and around the campus. And the bridge could be an idea that we look at as part of this going forward. I haven't personally heard about it previously, but I think, that could be a consideration to help get people safely across the street.
okay. All right. Anyone else have any feedback?
I do. This is Pearlie Hodges again.
Okay, so-
And I was thinking about what Miss Whitehead had said. I would like to see some intergenerational initiatives or endeavors, because so often the elderly generation and the younger generations don't talk. They don't come together, and that transfer of learning take place. So I would like to see intergenerational activities take place. And again, elderly people sometimes think they don't have anything to offer, or those young folk don't want to listen to us, but they do. They do. And there could be a lot of transference of wisdom and knowledge.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for that feedback. I did get something in the chat that says enhancing the cultural arts in a broader diversity. I did ask for some more specifics around that. So hopefully the iPhone user can chime in and tell me what are some of those ideas that they had in mind. Okay. And any more questions about, or any more suggestions about what are the most important to highlight? If not, we'll move on to question number 3. Okay. So our final question for the Heritage Place is what other project ideas do you have that would help strengthen this theme? So if there's something on here that you think should be on here, even if it's from one of the other themes that we've already highlighted, would you like to share that with us? Not all at the same time, everybody. All righty. Adam, I think we're, repeat the question. Okay. What other project ideas do you have that would help strengthen this theme? So with all that we have outlined here for Heritage Place, what are some other, I guess, concepts that we could potentially entertain? Give Jiminique a minute.
Some sort of passing of the torch, as I believe her name Ms. Hodge was speaking of, the younger generation speaking with the old. Maybe there's something we can put into place where the older generation and the younger generation gap can program together, where they can just actually pass information.
Okay.
Communication, as Chief Hawkins was speaking of, maybe there's a break in communication between the churches. We need to bridge the communication gap between the young and the old as far as the heritage and the build of the communities.
That's one of the items that you see right there where it says news. We talked about better communication about existing programs. I would personally would love to see, like some kind of community email blast or something where we're getting updates on a regular basis, not only about what's going on in the community, but about things that people that are doing great things in the community. When I think about the news, it's usually talking about Cary, Durham, and Raleigh. And I'm like, okay, what about Fayetteville? So the only time I see anything about Fayetteville is normally something that is negative. So I do agree that communication piece is very important, especially when you're trying to address the stigma, where it's a negative stigma that's been placed on a community. So you want to change that, and you generally through communicating good things is how that happens. So we have, do we have any potential historic sites in the area that haven't been identified? That's from Jiminy. I do know that there is a meeting coming up with the Community Watch for Seabrook and Broadale that is actually delving into that conversation, how to go about identifying historical sites as well as getting that designation. That meeting is actually coming up. I think it's November the 15th, which is a Monday. And it generally starts about 6 o'clock. If anyone is interested in attending that meeting, I can get that information to you, Jiminique. I'll make sure you get it. And thank you for your question. As a young person here, I also think these intergenerational programs, conversations are super important. So that's Aja, I guess, agreeing with the intergenerational conversations and programs. The iPhone user has commented that provide the seniors with a senior citizen center, day center where the youth can go and engage. Great idea. At our meeting with hosted by Ms. Leeks on last week, the mayor did talk about a development of a senior center that's coming at the corner of Filter Plant and Murchison Road. And they have some very good ideas about what will be housed and offered there. So I think that's an opportunity for those types of programming to occur, but I'm not sure exactly what the lay of the land is or what the plan is. But that's something that we can additionally build into our concept as well. Any more feedback from the group? Of course, advertise the positive heritage of the community along the corridor. Someone said there's an African-American trail. That's the potential historic sites. I think that's someone answering that question. Cardell, I've never heard of that. So that's some interesting information. I'll have to research that.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is Barbara Hill Jones. I would like us to be more involved with our senior citizens to make sure that their needs are met, whether it's food, someone cutting their grass, someone coming in to help them clean up their homes, or whatever is necessary, because our history comes from these senior citizens and they are so vital to our ongoing success. And if we appreciate them, they have so much to give, so much that we could benefit from. And I'd like to see that. And I'd like for us to really take an interest to make sure that they are doing well. Just call on them, check on them to see if they're all right, if they need anything. And that will build a positive community.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara. I appreciate that. All righty. And someone commented we can create the African-American Trail if there isn't one. Cardell said I work with the Fayetteville Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, would love to share with us. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, Jiminy, she's given some examples of how this can sort of work. And all of this is being recorded. And generally we get a transcript. And if I'm not mistaken, Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the transcript is available soon after the meeting ends in the next few days. So if you want to check the website at www.murchisonchoice.com, you can actually download what happened here tonight and take a read over again. It's a lot of information that was shared, a lot of comments, and all of it is very valuable. So I'm going to turn this back over to Adam to do our closeout because we're doing really good with our time. And again, we appreciate everyone with your comments and your participation, and please stay involved. It's not just a one-shot thing in terms of coming to one meeting and think we're going to save the world. We really have to put our boots on the ground to make some significant change. So again, thank you. And I'm so happy to be here. Glad to be back in Fayetteville. Adam?
Thank you so much. That was a fantastic conversation around the Heritage Place theme. So we just wanted to do a single polling question here. Now that you've learned about these three themes, and again, this gives us direction as a team. We're not just picking one and that's the only one we're going to do. But is there one of these three themes that kind of rises to the top from your perspective? So I'm going to, let's see, try to do a little poll here. Give me 1 second. Let's find it. Here it is. Okay, so you're going to see a question pop up on the screen that says, which of these themes would you rank the highest? And again, this isn't binding for the rest of the plan, but this just gives us a sense of the priority with the group that's here tonight. So that should be popping up on the screen here. So is it the growing green theme and enriched and complete community? Is it the college town theme, which may be turning into more of an educational town theme, depending on how we restate it? Or is it that heritage place, the historical and cultural community theme? And we're just going to give it a couple minutes here. Looks like 13 people have answered so far. So please, if you don't have the ability to take the poll, you can put it in the chat as well. But you can see how the results are kind of shaping up here.
For those that may not know, you can hit your the 3 dots and it'll come up for you and you just tap on it to vote. All right, so it looks like about 65% of the people that are online voted on this question, with 57% saying the growing green theme was the highest priority from their perspective. Now it's 58. The second was the heritage place theme, historical and cultural community. And then the third being the college town community of learning. So thank you so much for participating in that. That helps us understand kind of the overall priorities going forward. And we can adjust these themes based on what we've learned here tonight. So thank you for doing that. So we are getting to the end here. This is our next steps in the process. Just to reiterate a little bit of what was said earlier. So we have the market study kicking off very shortly. We want to hold more of those smaller community conversations, potentially with the faith-based community or other groups that are interested in meeting with one of our ambassadors. The digital equity initiative is moving forward in 2022. And that is the Wi-Fi program within parts of the neighborhood. The little free libraries we're hoping to install in the spring as well. That coloring book project is going forward, as well as the mural project next to Mount Sinai. And then as we move into January of 2022, we're going to be having those working groups that'll focus on specific topics based on a lot of what's coming out of these conversations in these bigger meetings. So that's what we have a lot on our plate in the next few months. But I just wanted to really encourage you all to stay involved, reach out to our ambassadors. I think everybody did an awesome job tonight. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna give you like a virtual round of applause for being part of our meeting here. You did great. All of our ambassadors have been amazing, and you all did a wonderful job facilitating these conversations here tonight as well. So thank you all. Just wanted to, wish you all a happy Halloween if you're going to be going out trick-or-treating or celebrating this weekend. And you can find out more about the project at murchisonchoice.com. Our project manager with the city of Fayetteville is Dominique Laszlo Johnson, and her email is on the screen there. And you can always reach out to myself or any of the community ambassadors as we move forward. So it is about 7:24. We got about 6 minutes left. Just wanted to see if anyone had any community announcements they wanted to make, or if any other questions. And I see Kim has her hand raised, so I'm going to pass it over to Kim.
Kim, did you want to make a comment? I think you're still on mute. There you go.
I'm sorry, Adam, can you repeat that?
Which part?
The last part, I was having a little bit of technical difficulty.
So I just mentioned that you can find out anything about the plan at the website that's on the screen, murchisonchoice.com, and we'll also share the information from this meeting shortly. And you can reach out to Dominique, whose email is on the screen, myself, I put my email in the chat previously, or any of our community ambassadors going forward.
Absolutely. Okay.
So,
Adam, I have a quick statement.
yes, Lenore, go ahead.
So for those of you who are on Facebook, there is a Facebook page for the Murchison Choice program. So go and like the page, send out an invite to your entire community, those who are from Murchison Road or currently live on Murchison Road, invite them to the page because we do update information on that page as well. That's it. Thanks, Adam.
And thank you. Any other final comments or questions before we log off for the night? Okay, hearing none. Well, thank you all again for hanging in with us for almost the full 2 hours. I think it was an awesome conversation. We got a lot out of it. So we're excited to move forward with this. And hopefully the next time you hear from us, we'll have some further refined concepts and projects that we're going to be looking for your input on. So stay in touch, be part of the process going forward, and everyone have a great rest of your week and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Adam. You did a good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.